so much for joining us today for Rosemead. If you could all kindly stay in your seats after the Q&A so that our talent can leave the theater safely. They do have another panel to get to afterwards. We appreciate your patience. Now please welcome moderator John McGinn and our star Lucy Liu.
Hello everyone. We thought we would have a request to put phones down so we don't be present, but if you want to take some photos or leave, that's okay too. I know you're not here for me, so could we have one more opportunity to give it up for the extraordinary Lucy Liu?
I'm here for John McGinn, so, first of all, this is incredible. This is a huge theater, and everybody is here, so thank you for being here. This is the opening day for Rosemead, and instead of seeing a 4.5-hour movie, Kill Bill, you're here. 97 minutes, not too bad. So I can just speak for the whole team, just incredible gratitude. Thank you.
It's such an honor to be here with you, Lucy. We're close friends, and so this is going to be completely biased. There's no journalistic separation here. I have just a lot of great questions celebrating this extraordinary accomplishment. And I'm not off script yet, so I have my notes with me, so bear with me. But I just want to, first of all, congratulate you. I mean, you have produced this movie, you starred it probably happened to be because of you. Are you just loving the moment that it's resonating with audiences, that it's sparking conversations that need to happen?
I mean, to be honest, it's been such a long road. I mean, some of the people that are on the team have been on this for, since 2017. I came on in early 2019, so it's been 7.5 years, and I just cannot believe we're finally sharing this very tiny movie about this family that existed, and that we can have it in our library, that there's a space on the shelf. And what I want to do with this movie is I want to clear not just a space, I want us to have like an entire library of our stories, not just this one little slot.
Yeah, beautiful. And there's a beautiful, there's a beautiful irony in the film. This is based on a true story. It was originally reported just very poignantly by Frank Shou, who covered the story of this tragedy that did happen in Los Angeles. I found it incredibly moving and sad. And the element of it that I found almost saddest was that she wanted her and her family's memory to be erased. And now we're all talking about mental illness, and we're talking about the stigma and how we destigmatize it in immigrant communities. That's going to be so rewarding.
I think that this movie is going to spark conversation. I mean, if you felt anything at all from watching this family, whether it resonated with you on a personal level or whether you know somebody, I mean, I didn't know that, there was so much that the community was missing. And I think that this woman who actually gave the interview to Frank, lives in that community. And when she, talked about this family or this woman that was her friend, she was also somebody who was ostracized from the community. And it should not be the case where you express something and you share something about someone that you loved that's no longer here, and the suffering that she had, that she should be then, have the same, I guess, punishment. And I think that's something that we don't want. We don't want to feel like you can share something with somebody and then instead of being embraced, you are, excommunicated.
You have a reputation for incredible work ethic and for doing the work to respect the crew, your family, your audience. And this film was definitely a lot of work to get this from a conversation to what we're seeing now, and now being talked about in kind of an awards context, which is so. I'm just delighted to hear that, because it would be so well deserved to have some honors around this amazing work of art. But your preparation, Lucy, that you went through to inhabit this woman's existence. And you know, the most obvious thing that someone asked about would be, you know, the dialect coaching that you must have had. I mean, it really, I mean, you disappeared into the role. I mean, people know you for these big budget films, and this small film is, on some level, probably the most wondrous work you've ever done.
It's actually the most intimate I've ever been with a role, because I was able to bring my community and my background. My parents are immigrants, and you know, when I grew up in the household, we didn't speak English. So until I went to public school and then stumbled through an immersive, you know, I guess, language course by going to public school and then trying to catch up. I felt like I was always trying to catch up. And so the way that Irene had to be absolutely authentic, so that nobody would see, you know, something else that they might have, you know, seen me in before, so that we could really like respect this, you know, this, well, I guess make the story as clear as possible and not kind of distort or filter the lens, because it's so important to fall into this family, understand, you know, the marginalization that she was in. And also, I think there's a very silent undercurrent of, you know, the healthcare system and how it didn't work for her. I mean, there's a lot of different layers that we don't talk about but exist, and I think that is something that we all struggle with, whether we speak the language or not. Like, you know, when you go in there and you don't understand something, which is, you know, any medical term I'm not familiar with. I mean, I played a doctor, but I'm not a doctor. You know what I mean? So like, I only know what I've learned or had to look up. So I can't imagine, when I've seen my parents growing up not really completely understanding everything that's going on. And I think that as a child of immigrants, you become the parents. So there's a lot of responsibility as a child to try to make up for what your own parents may not understand, you know, so you end up being, you know, growing up very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, this is an important film, and I think just as a warning to people who have just seen it, the story will stay with you. I mean, for weeks after, I found myself reflecting on Irene and Shou and their tragic story. And I would be remiss if I did not call out Shou, who played your son and was so unbelievably effective in that role. And really, this was his first on-screen role, wasn't it?
Yes, Lawrence is just so, I cherish him. He submitted a self-tape, and he, you know, his initial feeling about this character, who was a son, a student, a friend, he just understood that it didn't have to be something large to be significant, and that mental health, you know, is not something that is, you know, necessarily what has been portrayed in your mind and the fear of what we think it is. And I think what's wonderful about how Eric Lin, who's also this first time directing, he's a cinematographer, was able to portray is that it's an everyday struggle. Like, what is the day-to-day struggle of mental health? It's not like the end result or the beginning of it. It's like what somebody like Irene, who's a caregiver, and caregiving is, if anyone has ever been a parent or has taken care of anyone, even if they're just have the flu or they're sick with a cold, it's the entirety of your being.
Wonderful. Eric, you mentioned first-time director Marilyn Fu, who co-wrote with Eric the film. I believe, right? She was the primary screenwriter, and Eric assisted. To have you in the mix creatively, helping to bring kind of your experience, your incredible decades of excellence and experience in this world to this team. I mean, it shows in every single frame. And I just give you so much credit for the extraordinary work that we all just saw. What do you hope people, we talked about conversations that we're having, but is there any other lasting impact you hope this film has?
I hope that it really is a universal resonance, and I say that meaning that it's not just about the AA and HPI community, it's about, you know, also, I think, information and understanding what goes on behind other people's lives. You know, you can judge somebody so easily by, you know, their social media or their, you know, what you think is going on, but you don't know the whole story. You know, and I think that that's something that we really need to be more evolved about, because it's so easy. And I think that even Irene, in this particular situation, which you see, she created this narrative that wasn't really there because she didn't have all the information. She saw those images on her son's computer, you know, she was hearing all of these, you know, she was just creating something that wasn't necessarily the full picture. And then it created this, it crescendoed into this tragedy. And I think that, of course, there was a ticking clock with her knowing that he was, you know, not well, and she had her time was limited. And I think when your time is running out, you really feel like there's, you know, you make rash decisions. And I think that she thought this was the best option. And I think knowing that and understanding that is heartbreaking and devastating.
For sure. I think we have time for a few questions, if you're up for that, Lucy. Does anyone have a question or two for Lucy they'd like to ask? Anyone? No pressure. We can put it back. The question has to be for Lucy, not for me, by the way.
Hi, Lucy. Thank you for creating this art. Still reeling from it, so give me a minute to process. But I was curious if you could comment on some of the decisions with respect to the cinematography, because I'm 45, so I've seen a lot of movies over my years, and I personally found that there were some very intentional choices, and I thought it was extremely effective. So I was curious if you could comment a bit about the decision making in that process.
Lyle, who was the DP on this, did a lot of the camera work himself, and I mean, there was a lot of, obviously, direction from Eric as well. And I think there was just a feeling of wanting to be, because there's a lot of silence between the mother and son, and there's a community that they're, you know, they're eating and they're spending time together, but there's a lot of, they're both trying to protect each other. And so I think the interiority of how he shot it was to kind of at least give you the emotional sense, even though there was silence, so that you could feel and sense instead of be, you know, stimulated by, you know, we're so used to this kind of quick cuts and TikTok and, you know, the sensory overload. And I think that the silence of the movie is the power. And I think that they brought that out visually with the close-ups, and I guess, you know, trying to almost shoot it as a documentary.
Great question. You're in the room?
First of all, thank you so much for your sharing your art with us all these years, Lucy. And I want to ask you, what was the hardest part for you to bring this character to life?
Thank you. I think the hardest part about this character was recognizing how I did not see my parents enough. And when I say that, I think I saw them, but I didn't really feel enough compassion for them. And I think I saw the struggle and I was angry at the struggle, and I wanted them to do more. I wanted them to stand up and shout and scream and rage and, you know, talk back to the people at the store that were like calling them names or saying negative things about them when they asked where the milk was. You know, there was so much racism that we grew up with in that time, the 70s and the 80s, and obviously it continues to this day. There's a lot of violence, not just against, you know, our community, but I mean, you see the injustices. And so I wanted as a child for my parents to be fighting, and I can see how they were just fighting to survive. How much bandwidth do they have to fight outside of that, you know, because it could have been like how they had to be protective of themselves physically, right? and also of us. And I think the most difficult part of this movie was like after the fact, and learning how it's the greatest gift also, but like how I have grown so much, not just as a parent, but as a child. And, you think about your life and you move on, but you're always a child, even if your parents have passed away. And I am, starting again. And it's a painful process because I've forgotten so many of my memories as a child. I think when you have a difficult childhood, you repress it and you save yourself from feeling any pain, and your body just forgets, your brain forgets, it just gets muffled. So I have, Irene and this family, their love has created this dimension that it always existed, but it was locked away.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think one more question. Michelle.
So, hi, thank you so much for sharing this. I will say, putting yourself in this position and in this role, I would imagine, like you said, you've grown a lot, you've come to understand a lot. What do you hope that people take away from this in terms of mental health and being able to speak to other people within the community or even just any immigrant situation about, like, in a sense, like how would this character, Irene, have wanted to be approached, or like, what are some ways that you think all of us in this theater can go out and make a difference?
That's a great question. I think that it would have really helped if she had a real translator to really understand the language and to know the detail of what was happening. I think she tried desperately to do all of the right things. She went to the school obviously told her to go to this family center. Obviously she felt uncomfortable with that, but she did it. She gave him Western medicine, which is very much thought about in a negative way, just like those women with bad eyebrows said, and I just feel like even her own friend said, "You sound like a foreigner," when she told her, like, he's getting better with therapy. I feel like what I said earlier about judgment, and sometimes like just listening is so important. And there are outreach programs like APEX, which is specifically for the AA and HPI community, but it's about knowing that we have a lot of generational trauma. And I was telling John earlier this wonderful historical books about how the Chinese people came over to work on the railroads and how they were being paid $1, and other people were being paid that were not Asian $13, and just the enormous amount of oppression and racism that occurred. We carry that with us, not unlike Holocaust survivors, not unlike people that come over and are slaves. I mean, there is a systematic feeling of where we come from without knowing it. You just think it's your family and where you're born, but it's more than that. It's generational. It just keeps getting passed on. And I think that studying not just what I said earlier about my own family, but then going beyond that and seeing where we came from, how we came to be, is really helpful to sort of see there's an internal, disc that's in us all on a very cellular level that we don't even know. And investigating that helps to not change history, but it can change your future. And I think we have to remember that we all come from somewhere, and we have been, and to this day, I think especially now, if we are of any diversity or any immigration, we are being literally tackled and thrown into a van, not even checking your ID. And oftentimes I take the public transportation all the time, and it's just a dangerous time to be anything. And I can't change the way that it looked, nor do I want to, but if I wasn't who I was, you know, and more recognizable, I could be the next person. And I feel like, you know, knowing that, we have to have more compassion for each other, and we need to really reach out to each other to make sure that we don't lose sight of where we came from. And to just basically study a little bit about your own heritage. It has created a great deal of insight, and it's also created a lot of like anger. You know, it makes me feel like this is not just now, it happened a long time ago and it's still happening. You know, and I think knowledge is power, right? It's not violence. Violence is not power.
And I think to your point on storytelling, just seeing people beyond how they look and making assumptions, listening and hearing the stories and seeing each other's common humanity is so important. So before we wrap up, I have a very important job for everyone in this theater. This is a small film and it does not have much of a marketing budget. You are now the marketing department for this film. So I really plead with you to go out and talk about the film with your friends, with your colleagues. If you are on social media, post something positive about it. We need to get the word out about this movie. It's an important film. It deserves to be seen. It's been, I mean, Lucy talked about this, it's been an enormous struggle to get it to this point right here. And you guys can help make it a real difference in continuing the conversation that this film is sparking. And let me wrap up by just again thanking you, Lucy, for your leadership on this film. I love you so much, and I just am so proud of you. And I'm excited to see what happens with this film. Love you.
Just to be clear, this movie is only showing for 1 week here, so thank you for being here. You started, you know, you planted the seed, and let's water it. Let's give it some sunshine. Take it with you. I mean, it's a really difficult film, and I understand that. It's why it was so hard to make. But I want you to just receive it in however you want to receive it, and, you know, don't leave her behind. Thank you.